A heartfelt thank you to Ms. Claire for shedding light on the significance of engaging with Dir'iya's heritage through sensory experience of scent. So moving forward, to delve into the history of Arabian oases, caravans, and the artistic legacy, we present a special lecture by Dr. Diana Pickworth, a visiting scholar at the University of California, Berkeley.
Sorry about that. Where do I click it? On the left. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Now you can hear. All right. How is that? Good? Okay. Well, good morning. I'm very happy to be here. I waited almost 40 years to come to Saudi Arabia. So Caravans, Oases, and the artistic legacy of Arabia. Fine, I found it. Sorry? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Maps of the 18th century. The map you see was created in 1851. It represents a European 19th century fascination with the Arabian Peninsula, fired by a competitive greed quite as much as curiosity. Earlier maps of 1720 by C. Cellarius and 1817 by Arrowsmith, both in my collection, make abundantly clear a total lack of information below the latitude of Jeddah and El-Khassa. Excepting the coasts, the maps represent a growing expansionist attitude of the United Kingdom. Diriyah is marked on all three of the maps. Today, I hope to demonstrate how very much busier it was below the Jeddah El-Hassa latitude. Carsten Niebuhr, who lived from 1733 to 1815, visited the Wadi Hanifa in 1761, an oasis habitable only periodically. The Wadi Hanifa feeds the oasis that is Diriyah. The river was historically referred to as the Wadi al-Arad, an intermittent river, later named for its tribal inhabitants, the Bani Hanifa. A Danish academic research expedition group met grief and death, and the sole survivor, Carsten Niebuhr, passed through Diriyah meeting Prince Muhammad ibn Saud. He arrived from India by sea and traveled along the eastern route through the central desert to Najd, en route to Pasargadae. The intermittent river demanded local guides and informants for any foreign visitor. An oasis of palm trees offers food, baskets, and light furniture. And I've actually slept in Babylon on funny beds made from bamboo strips. It was fun. Today, dates grown on the island of Socotra are packed tightly into leather-sewn tubes and preserved for up to 7 years. They taste marvelous and address the non-optimal living conditions in the southern part of Arabia and its islands. Their cultivation also includes a ground cover cropping of clover to be used for fodder for the sheep and goats, which are tended by the women while at the same time replenishing the earth with nitrogen. A mixed herd of goats, sheep, and donkeys are managed by women who circulate within a larger elliptical cycle made by the men driving the camel herds who free range. The climatic variations of the northern monsoon and an east-west division across the continent of animal and plant species led to remarkable shifts in the habitability of the land through time. Notably, this land was in earlier ancient periods a green, productive space. Witness to the desiccation at the end of the Bronze Age are the thousands of stone tombs on cliffs, bluffs, and hillocks. The loss of species reflects an associated human decline as once continent-wide rivers disappeared underground, leaving only empty, dry wadi beds for us to explore today. It is along these dry, hollow, and on the sabkha of lost lakes that we must explore. The camel. I love camels. The camel, because this is the year of the camel. Rock art imagery of a wild camel hunt and later domestication reflects a specificity of breeding for location. The fat stored in the hump of the camel was a genetic response to unreliable and failing optimal weather. The very earliest migrants out of Africa appear to have crossed at the Bab el-Mandeb, and a second group crossed at the top of Africa across the Sinai Peninsula. Here pictured is a black camel, he's my very favorite one, at the lower edge of the southwest edge of the Rub al-Khali. This image was taken north of Jawat Banat Mathul, south of the better-known rows of tombs on the hills. The fat content of the milk in the black camel is bred to be higher at 6.7%. Also, there is a development of the feet to walk in the finest sand. These are fat-tailed sheep. The fat-tailed sheep represent 25% of global species. They originated in the Near East, and I took this photo on the mound of one of the gates at Nineveh in Iraq. This adaptation led to 130 pounds of fat stored in the tail. This resulted from a genetic modification, and Darwin's greatest discovery was that change could happen very quickly, dependent upon the weather. These two animals, the camel and the fat-tailed sheep, responded to a decline in climatic conditions, each in different ways, but both developing a fat storage mechanism against food deprivation, which was used by humans to their advantage. More useful to us is a record from Babylon in the Sumerian language, where the first mention of the sale of 3 fat-tailed sheep occurred, called Gukal. This occurred 2900 BC, which means that they were domesticated by this point. Rock art was the earliest desert communication, which was purely visual, and today the different styles can be perceived and dated. These are the national treasures to protect. The art continues over an extended time period, and writing, the mark of the beginning of history, occurs in different times and different areas. And certainly the rocks were the first tablet to use for the Arabs, having no permanent homestead. The declining density of population is also to be factored in. A traditional understanding of the development of writing in Mesopotamia was that the equivalent of bills of lading traveled with goods across the desert. For example, a small square token with a cross-hatched line symbolizes sheep. Specific signs signified the quantity of how many sheep were being moved. This token was encased in a round clay hollow ball to be opened on arrival. It's about the size of a tennis ball, and if you shake it, you can hear the tokens inside. As one small token, Arabia was part of this exchange, as one small token was found in a museum collection from Arabia. The development of society is chronicled for the first time in Arabia by the people of Ma'in in what I'm referring to as the southern Jove, where their temples were decorated with rows of animal images interspersed with the etched royal name of the builder of the temple. Important to note, no camels are included in the southern Jove imagery, marking an artistic division between the settled societies of the small kingdoms with sufficient resources to remain in place, and the migratory Bedouin who moved to create a sustainable living pattern. Caravan routes of the desert, a transition from plenitude to desiccation and prehistory. The desert life is constrained by paucity of resource and distance between water sources, such that movement by the people was necessity to sustain life. But the Rub al-Khali denied all life and had to be circumnavigated. A study of the Ruwala is useful as their style embodies ancient practice. The art created on rock faces chronicles for us life before desiccation at the end of the Bronze Age. The routes of the northwest and northeast across the country were a response to the advantage of a connection with the Levantine and Mesopotamian societies. The reality was that the raw materials, raw metals, minerals, and specific botanicals desired in the far north and unavailable there were to be found in the southwest of the continent, where settled communities of small states exported these goods across the continent. What had been a small exchange pattern expanded as the camel caravans shunted across the continent for 1000 BC before Common Era and from south to north, and eventually from the middle first millennium before Common Era, also north to south, carrying goods back into the peninsula in the Roman period. Oh, it jumps. Good. This is the first sculpture in the round, and this particular example, this fat, chubby little lady, I excavated at Jawat Bintain Methul. And Jawat is northeast of Marib, if that helps you slightly. It's a long way from anywhere, and it means two little mountains. The second period of artistic legacy is represented by this burial piece. The chubby little female figure is rare, as these figures are primarily of armed male figurines found in the Hadramut by Alexander Sedor. The figurines are all of granite, and more strongly than anything else, a marker of complete climactic collapse in the marginal areas of the continent, extending south to the Wadi, crossing the continent into the Hadramut. All of these areas experience desertification. The master of animals imagery occurs throughout the Middle East, and the image is illustrated on small stamp seals in the south and on cylinder seals in the north. Early glyptic art images represent a transition of societal structure. The animals chosen are lion, leopard, antelope, or the ibex. Humans are demonstrating their supremacy over the fiercest animals, and environmental control is associated thereby. A king or leader uses the art imagery to demonstrate his power and prowess to the people he leads. We also see examples of one dominated bird, the ostrich, killed and hanging, or life and hanging sometimes. One is held up in each hand by a leader of the desert areas. The bovine hunt, this is very beautiful, and anyone who happens to know where it is, it would be important to let us know. It was reported by Groman early, and he seems to have made the image from somebody's plaque, this plaque, who owned it. It does not seem to be in the museums, but I think it would be in Italy, if anywhere. The pictorial story is read from bottom to top, where the name of the leader is written in ancient South Arabian. The lowest image shows the leader riding a horse, followed by a servant on foot. In the second image, the leader grasps the horns of the bull. It's a bull, not a leopard. To demonstrate his power, the decorated skin of the animal implies it is a sacrificial gift for a temple, as the servant holds a dagger aloft, ready to slaughter the animal. In the third panel, we see the leader and his servant on a camel carrying the sacrificial skin. The final top panel shows the pair walking, led by the crowned king holding a staff and the gift. Clearly a first millennium before Common Era artistic tour de force, and it's referred to only by Groman in 1963 and Müller in 1876. So it's been known a long time. The ibex hunt, rocks and sacred mountains were used as meeting places for tribal and kingly ceremony. An ibex hunt was an annual event and continues up until today in the Hadramut. I've actually seen one. In the imagery of the ibex hunt, a king assumes the mask of an ibex. We see this art both on the wall decoration and on the glyptic art. Shown here, we see the use of a saluki to chase and hunt the animals. They are also sometimes netted, but a saluki bites the animal on the haunch and pulls it down, and then it has to be killed. This is the salt mine at Safa, and I'm aware that there is a salt mine fairly close to Riyadh, but today, north of Marib, one still sees the camels plodding along with sacks of salt. This was of great importance for preservation of meat, and this view I took is deep into the mine. The ostrich hunt is shown here as a frieze, but it also occurs on Chalcedony seals, which depict the wild ostrich in the desert, which was not really domesticated. The hunt was a measure of community cooperation, financial gain, and food acquisition. It was discussed by Dumas in 1871, Laufer in 1926, and Coody in 1989. General Dumas was describing a hunt with guns, but the bow and arrow would have been used in prior hunts in the same manner. A hunt was ceremonial, prestigious, and lucrative. These three major authors described the event and the organization required. It was not done singly, but with groups of 10 hunters, each accompanied by a servant riding a camel. The hunt would last 7 to 8 days, and each camel carries 4 goat skins of barley for the horses, wheat flour for the men, dates, a cooking pot, long cords, a sewing needle, horseshoes, and spare nails. The hunter wears a shirt and woolen trousers and covers his head with a cloth held by a leather thong. His weapon was a wooden olive wood or tamarind club, 4 to 5 feet long with a very heavy tip. The scalp for the flock, which can be from 30 to 60 birds. Once sighted, the riders, each carrying water only for themselves, circle the flock. Once in place, the servants move in to chase the birds, who run out towards the horsemen. Terrified, the birds run themselves to exhaustion, and as they weaken, each rider chooses a bird and chases it on horseback, hitting it hard on the head. It is immediately bled to preserve the feathers. This meat was boiled to render the fat, which was poured into the leg skin and closed and sealed by sewing. The tendons were saved for tying up the Bedouin tents. They returned to base camp to rest for 1 day, and then the hunt may be repeated. Salukis are used for catching baby ostriches. The feathers reap large financial reward, and were used for headdresses and clothing. Ostriches domesticated can yield 16 pounds of feathers a year from their 3rd to 12th year when plucked every 9 months. A female can produce 35 to 70 eggs a year, and scenes from Marib carved in stone give us an image of the narrative art in the first millennium before Common Era. There are quite a lot of ostriches images, but not very well published. The minerals, the gold, the silver, and the brass were plentiful all over the Arabian Peninsula. The gold mines in Yemen are quite, I wrote an article on them. And this granulation on this necklace, which was excavated in Timna in Yemen, demonstrates that the granulation, design, and engraving make clear that the highest quality of workmanship was also available in the peninsula. This lovely Arabian necklace, it's truly Arabian, was excavated by Alexander Sedov at Bir Ali. The gold traveled north to the kings of the Levant and Mesopotamia. Because gold mines are abundant in the peninsula, and the Mad al-Dhahab gold dust was actually visible traveling along the western route to Gaza. More expensive, and this is fairly new, were gold nuggets, which were specified by the Babylonian kings and were the finest and purest red gold. And I think indeed it's placer gold. It was sold at a rate of 14 shekels of silver for 1 shekel of gold. And this was referred to in text in Akkadian as Naltar gold, a loan word into Akkadian. It was sourced below the head of the Arabian Gulf in eastern Arabia. The silver was controlled, the mines in Yemen were controlled by the Sasanians. The big Rudrad silver mine was published by Robin. And in the first millennium, it led to their control of the Rudrad mines. It's south of Najran and other mines in the southern Jove. The blue agate is also from a named mine in the Yemen. And this image here, I excavated at Nineveh. And those funny looking loops or hoops around the top of the beautiful blue agate are solid silver. And we were able to X-ray them, but not restore them. It was too degraded. The bronze skill in the peninsula is amazing, and it's gifted with beautiful buried stones. Wait a minute. This demonstrates in the small southern city-states, and a specific skilled workforce produced a range of statues, rings, and bracelets. This is Mahdi Karab, and he's wearing a mark of kingship, is his lion skin hanging. It might be a cheetah, I think. This is extruded cryptocrystalline quartz, and the Arabian Peninsula is gifted with beautiful buried stones. And today, they're truly on display in the Taj Mahal. All of the stones that were used to decorate that memorial to his wife came from the Yemen, and they're very beautiful. These veins of white agate were associated with Bronze Age bead making on a site in the southern coast close to Aden. It's situated on a ledge overlooking the Gulf of Aden, unremarked by anyone for 1,000 years till I went for a picnic there. This sample is not veined. Here you see an Arab sample of the blue agate mounted in a silver ring, and it's unusual that it was not broken up to steal the metal. I'm going to run through some stones now. This is onyx. It's a small drilled bead, and it demonstrates the very highly valued black and white color of the stone. An onyx scepter now in the Vorderasiatisches Museum in Berlin was excavated in Babylon and is made from this stone. The majority of the stones in Arabia are sardonyx, and in the corpus of glyptic art from the Yemen, a tricolor banded agate of honey, cream, and brown is the norm. This is an opaque example of the stamp seal. These are two exquisite examples of stamp seals that are what I would call of gem quality, made into the finest engraved stones. I believe the one on your right is in the Metropolitan Museum in New York. The famed aromatics, which we heard about, are frankincense and myrrh. This is a tall, square incense burner traveling by camel to Babylon about 400 before Common Era. The rider holds aloft, question mark. I'm open to anyone's suggestion. It might be wood, implying that it's oud or aromatic. But most of the little square burners which went to Babylon, this one's a rather tall one, the short ones went to the south of Mesopotamia. Deria, through time, was a highly valued stopping point for the caravan traders. This means that today we must honor and continue with a caliber of excavation that captures in our sieves and flotation tanks the prehistory and history of its importance, for that is where we will find the story. This is myrrh, and we found this at Beer Alley. They must pack it into they're very large. They're about 15 inches across. And it was excavated by Sedov, and we were all working there. And the camel train went north until it arrived most normally in an eastern destination during the Roman period to be burned at funerals. And we also know, there's a very fine PhD, it's a very good abortive. The aromatics played a role as a defense against bad odors and a purification system. Lastly, and sadly, in the Roman period, the transport system transferred from a camel caravan land delivery to a Red Sea shipping delivery. Once the knowledge of the monsoon winds were conquered, it was an end to a lifeway that had endured almost 1,000 years. This is the well at the foot of the Mabalaka Pass, and I did go over it, that big mountain at the back, with one driver. We didn't ride, and it's the connection between Behan and Harib, and it's not very safe. That's me taking a photo. And intangible gifts from Daria, a language, genetic study, and the poetry of life. And I'm going to read a poem I wrote. The Ramlat Sabatain, and the wind called my name. She blew wisps from the dunes of the Ramlat Sabatain. Jebel Balak stood stern against her. She eddied, and the grains danced. Her force threw sand in my eyes. I wept with no feeling, watering the earth for life. The Rhea left, and the dream white sands reflected my spirit to the pallid blue sky filled with clouds. My two companions laughed, alive in their danger, for the sands are merciless, and one knows Allah's edge. Snaking over and around, we move fast, guests, in Allah's private place, fleeting, humble wriggles of universal time and space. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Diana. A heartfelt thank you to Dr. Diana. I want to turn to the audience. Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask Dr. Diana in regards to her lecture? Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Diana. We will be returning at 12:30, hopefully, for a lecture on key texts on trade in Dir'iyah by Dr. Muhammad Al Abdel Latif. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.